Welcome to the Positive Sports Podcast. I'll be your host this evening, Ed Montana. As you can see, I am flying solo today. My brother Alex is doing the vacation thing with his family. I didn't want to bother him. I was going to call him and make him be a part of this show, but I thought, let him enjoy his Christmas vacation with his family and friends, and he's off gallivanting around the country. I'm sure he'll tell us all about it when he gets back, having a good time. But I will say this. I miss you, bro. It's tough doing a podcast without you here. Anyway, so we'll just get right into it. First off, it is Christmas Eve. So to everyone out there who celebrates Christmas, Merry Christmas. I hope Santa brings you everything. I hope you've all been good boys and girls. And none of you get coal in your stockings. I know I will, but hey, that's just the way it goes for some of us. So let's get right into it. Week 16 of the NFL season is almost complete. The only game left is the Denver-Oakland game that's being played tonight. We really had some really exciting games yesterday, and it sets up for a fantastic final weekend of the season. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. A lot of the playoff spots, ironically, are already kind of tucked away. There's only one spot available in the NFC, and we'll start there. To me, the best game of the day yesterday was that that Houston-Philadelphia game. Just a fantastic football game. Two really good football teams. This Eagles team is really starting to look like the team I thought they were going to be all year long. It's a shame that they've only just now come around in the last few weeks, and they're playing really good football. The defense is playing well, and the offense is clicking. They have not missed a beat bringing in Nick Foles, but of course, we saw that last year, so it shouldn't be a surprise. Hats off to that guy. You know, he's been a career backup, basically, and he comes in last season after Carson Wentz is having an MVP-type season, and he leads his team to the Super Bowl and a Super Bowl win. Starts off the season as a starter. Excuse me. Does okay. Carson Wentz comes back. He sits on the bench and does his duty as the backup. And then, Carson Wentz goes down. He steps right in again and has led the team to 2 wins in the last 2 weeks. He has not played lights-out football, but he's played good football. And it shows. A very exciting game yesterday, 32-30 for the Eagles, and that keeps them in the race. Now, it doesn't do much for the NFC East for them because Dallas won, and Dallas holds the tiebreaker over Philadelphia. So Dallas clinched the NFC East yesterday with a win over the Buccaneers. So the Eagles are playing for a wild card spot, and they're playing for the last wild card spot as Seattle clinched their playoff spot last night with a 38-30, I believe was the final score. 38-30 or 38-31. I don't remember. Hold on. 38-31 win over the Chiefs. Man, the Chiefs are good. They're 11-4. But more importantly, as a fan, they play some of the most exciting games. That was another very good football game. Seattle looks like the kind of team that can really dominate offensively. Maybe not in terms of scoring a ton of points, but they will run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and eventually make you succumb to their way. And that's what they did last night. They basically wore on the Chiefs until they pulled out that win. With that win, they now clinch that first wild card spot. So, what we have left now, just to recap you, we've got the New Orleans Saints. They've clinched home field throughout. They won a very exciting football game yesterday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know a lot of Steeler fans are crying over missed opportunities and the officiating. But hey, the Saints are still, in my eyes, the best team in football this year. And the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC will have to go through New Orleans. So good luck with that, because on that turf, they are, on the turf indoors, they are just about unstoppable. I'll get back to that Saints-Steelers game because it has some serious ramifications for the Steelers that will really make next weekend quite interesting. But back to the NFC. So the Saints are the They're going to have the best record in the NFC. They've clinched home field throughout. The Rams are a game behind, but obviously they lost head-to-head, so they will get the second bye, and they will wait and see what happens with the Bears and the Cowboys, who won their respective divisions, the Seahawks, who are in the playoffs, and then the final spot in the playoffs. It's come down to Philadelphia at 8-7 and Minnesota at 8-6-1, and it's gonna be very interesting next week to see how that shakes out, because the Eagles have to travel to Washington, which is a football game they should win. I mean, let's be honest here. Washington had a pretty good season going, but once the quarterback injury started, Alex Smith went down with a broken leg, Colt McCoy went down with a broken leg. Their offense is just incapable of generating anything, and it's really kind of unfortunate. Because they were the surprise team. No one was talking about them, and Adrian Peterson was having a fantastic year. Alex Smith was having a fantastic year. It looked like things were really going up, and then the injury bug hit them really bad. So that's the end of that. Minnesota, on the other hand, is at home against Chicago. Now, Chicago really has nothing to play for. They're going to be the highest seeded team that plays on Wild Card Weekend in the NFC. So if they beat Minnesota, they could be facing the Eagles. I'm not going to say that if they let Minnesota win. If they happen to lose to Minnesota, they'd be playing Minnesota the very next weekend again. Only this time they would be playing them in Chicago. Minnesota has the tougher game, the tougher opponent, but they have them at home, which is a big advantage to them. Philadelphia has the easier opponent, but has to go on the road, a place that they have traditionally, have struggled. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out. There's nothing else to worry about in the NFC next week. You're just watching those two games to see how it shakes out, because other than that, it's over. I guess that's not true. I guess the Bears do have an incentive to win, because if they do, they could tie with the LA Rams for that second best record and get the bye. Although the LA Rams play at home against the 49ers, I expect them to win that game convincingly. So maybe Chicago just rests their guys and gets ready for Wild Card Weekend. So that's really it for the NFC. The NFC is pretty cut and dry. It's been a very interesting season, to say the least. You had Dallas kind of getting on that hot streak in the middle there that has really propelled them to the top. The Giants disappointing throughout the season, really. They lost a close one yesterday to the Colts, who are playing unbelievable football at this point. We'll go to the AFC in a little bit. And then really the other surprise is the Packers unable to really muster any kind of consistency offensively or defensively, really. But most of the problems seem to be on the offensive side of the ball. I believe Aaron Rodgers has been playing at less than 100% physically throughout the season, and it shows. They had to go into overtime to beat the Jets yesterday. Obviously they fired Mike McCarthy during the season, so there's some turmoil there. And then in the South, Atlanta has been relatively disappointing. I think people expected more from Atlanta this year, and Carolina as well. The injury bug hit Carolina pretty bad, and that's kind of the way their season has gone. If you look at that division, you got the Saints at 13-2, and then 6-9, 6-9, 5-10 of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it has not been a very good division. And then out west, it's really been the LA Rams show throughout the season. The Seahawks have gotten hot here towards the end of the season and are playing much better football. And then San Francisco and Arizona are clearly in rebuild mode and have a lot of work to do to be competitive going forward. We move on to the AFC, where the playoff picture is a little more interesting. I mentioned that Houston-Philadelphia game really quite a blow to the Texans. because it drops them down into that third, tied for the second best division winner record with the Patriots, and the Patriots have that tiebreaker. So now the Patriots are back in the driver's seat to get a bye in in the first week of the playoffs. The Patriots went out, they beat the Bills and won the division for, I think it was the 39th time in a row. I mean, it's really, in this day and age in football, where you see a different division champion every year in the AFC South, in the NFC South, to see the Patriots win, I think it was their sixth, I was joking about 39, but to see them win I believe it was their 16th division title in a row, is really, well, I think there's one year there they didn't win it, but it's just an incredible string of top-notch performance by an organization in a salary cap era where it's pretty difficult to maintain that level. But they somehow find a way to do it. It helps to have one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. It helps to have one of the best coaches ever. So, but it's still really an incredible achievement. The Dolphins really shot themselves in the foot yesterday. They're playing a Jacksonville Jaguars team that has absolutely nothing to play for and could not move the football. It was one of the most inept offensive displays we've seen all season long, and really shot themselves in the foot to the point that they are out of the playoff chase. It's just, they're done. They had an outside shot. They have no shot now, losing 17-7 to the Jaguars yesterday. It's really very disappointing for them after the high of beating the Patriots a couple of weeks ago. Moving on, this is where it gets really interesting, is in the AFC South. Actually, let me go to the AFC West first. So you have Kansas City with the best record in the division. Well, actually, they're tied with the Chargers for the best record in the division. I believe the Chiefs are ahead by a tiebreaker. They split during the season, so it's pretty dicey for them. And they're basically playing for the number one spot in the playoffs. So they're playing for home field advantage throughout. So the Chiefs next week, as I look here, they are hosting the Oakland Raiders, who are playing tonight. So they have it pretty easy. The Chargers, on the other hand, have to go to Denver, which is not an easy game for them. But admittedly, it will be against a Denver team that A, has nothing to play for, and B, will have played tonight. So it's quite possible that both of those teams win next week. The Patriots play at home against the Jets, so they will certainly be putting the pressure on those two teams to win. Otherwise, if they both lose and the Patriots win, I believe the Patriots would get home field advantage throughout. And, so there's a lot to play for in terms of a bye. There's a big difference between winning the division and being the wild card, as well as home field advantage throughout. So in that regard, it's going to be very interesting in the top half of the standings when you look at the AFC next week. There's still stuff to play for in the AFC South, with the Texans losing. Indianapolis and Tennessee both won over the weekend. Tennessee took care of Washington. Again, Tennessee looks like a very good football team. They will run the ball to death, and that's what they did to the Redskins. And admittedly, the Redskins just don't have much of an offense at this point in the season. And the Colts played a tough game with the Giants, but they pulled it out in the end and won. So now you've got the Texans at 10-5, the Colts at 9-6, and the Titans at 9-6. And oh, looky, look who plays next week. Indianapolis at Tennessee. Winner goes into the playoffs, loser goes home. It's just that simple. The playoffs start next week for Indianapolis and Tennessee. There's no playoff check involved, but the playoffs start next week. Win or go home. Those are your choices if you're Indianapolis or Tennessee next week. The Texans have it a little bit easier. They get to play at home against Jacksonville, so I expect that they will win and win the division, which is important for them because you don't want to be the wild card. The wild card is a tough road to hoe. And then we move to the AFC North. I have a feeling that the AFC North is going to be exciting for many years to come. And I know the conversation right now is going to be about Baltimore and Pittsburgh. But we really need to look out for those guys in Cleveland. Baker Mayfield and the Browns are 7-7-1. Remember, they were 0-16 last year. They beat the Bengals yesterday to get to 7-7-1. They could win next week and have a winning record this season after going 0-16 last season. Baker Mayfield has done a masterful job with that team. He is playing good football. He's only going to get better. And everyone makes a big deal about this whole Hugh Jackson thing. He stared him down after a touchdown pass or whatever. He is picking a battle to galvanize his team behind him. I think he's doing it on purpose. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. He's not talking about it in the media, but he's letting the media run with the story so that his team will stand behind him. And I think he's doing a masterful job. Alex and I got into a debate last week about about Rookie of the Year. And I'll tell you what, we argued about Saquon Barkley and Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson's having a fantastic season with Baltimore. But we failed to mention Baker Mayfield. And now that I think about it more, I think it should be more of a conversation between Baker Mayfield and Saquon Barkley, because Baker Mayfield's played just about every game this season, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he's taken a team that was 0-16, has gone through a coaching change in the middle of the season, and is sitting at 7-7-1. They will not make the playoffs, but look out for them in the future. Remember, they have a very young nucleus of players. They have a good wide receiver in Jarvis Landry. They've got Chubb at the running back position. They've got Mayfield. They've got Jabril Peppers on the other side of the ball as a safety. They've got Myles Garrett. If they make some good moves this offseason, that could be your sleeper team next year. Although I don't know that anyone's going to be sleeping on them, but they're pretty good. Now, I'm not going to mention the Cincinnati Bengals because my brother's not here for me to tease him. That was his sleeper team this year, and it looked good in the beginning, but then they fell asleep, and hence they are out of it. And another disappointing season in Cincinnati. Injuries bit them pretty hard as well. Remember, they lost Andy Dalton pretty early on in the season. So now we get to the interesting part of the AFC North, and that is the battle between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So Baltimore played a fantastic game on Saturday night. Their defense really showed out and shut the Chargers down and beat them 22-10 to put the Ravens at 9-6. The Steelers, of course, had that very tough football game yesterday in New Orleans against the Saints, a game that they lost 31-28. Now, they will complain about the officiating. They'll complain about the fourth down decision. They'll complain about the Smith-Schuster fumble. They had their opportunities, and they just did not take them for whatever reason. And it's a shame. Pittsburgh has put themselves in a very difficult situation. They must win next week. They must win. They are at 8-6-1. If they win, they will. Well, actually, I take that back. They're a half game behind Baltimore, so they have to win. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pittsburgh is at home against Cincinnati. That is a huge benefit to them because Cincinnati is not very good, and Cincinnati has pretty much mailed it in for the season. Baltimore is also at home, but they're playing the Browns. And the Browns are not playing for a playoff spot, but they're playing for an opportunity to be above 500. And I'm telling you, I think they're going to be very motivated to go out there and do that. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I think Baltimore has the much tougher football game next week. And it's going to be super interesting to see how that all shakes out. I think the Steelers win, and I think the Browns are going to ruin it for the Ravens. They're going to start another rivalry in their division. And I think the Steelers will get in by the skin of their teeth. So the way I see the playoffs, you have New England and the Steelers winning their divisions, the Texans and the Chiefs, I'm going to say, winning their division. The Chargers will be a wild card, and then it comes down to Indianapolis and Tennessee on Sunday night. I am going to go with the Tennessee Titans. I just trust a team that that can run the football the way they can, and so I am very excited to see them next week. And in the playoffs, I think they're going to be a tough out for anyone. It's going to be a great playoff season. It's been a lot of fun. The season is always a blast, but it just keeps getting better. And the playoffs are always a very special time of year. We'll talk a little bit about. Sorry, my phone's just buzzing nonstop. You would think I was popular. I think it's all garbage mail. Probably an Amber Alert or two. So last week we talked about Rookie of the Year. I'm going to stick with Saquon Barkley just because I think he's done a masterful job throughout the season. Slightly better than Baker Mayfield. You got to wonder what the Giants would be without him, but that's that. On the MVP side, to me, there's no argument here. It's between two guys, and you can flip a coin, in my opinion. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Chiefs, and Drew Brees, the quarterback of the Saints. They have both played, as my brother likes to say, head and shoulders above everybody else. They have been unbelievable football players this year, unbelievable passers of the ball. They've led their teams to best record in their conference, although the Chiefs tied. Really just an incredible season by both of those gentlemen. However, I think, and I'm not sure, I'm gonna have to look this up, but if I'm not mistaken, Patrick Mahomes is, let's see what this, they're 1-2 in QBR, but Patrick Mahomes is throwing for 4,800 yards, and if I'm not mistaken, how many? I mean, he's damn near. So he's thrown for 48 touchdowns, 4,800 yards, 48 touchdowns. Those are some obscene numbers. Drew Brees is not far behind for sure, understood, and the man is doing it at the age of 39. But at the end of the day, he's at 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns. So the numbers don't lie, albeit only 5 interceptions. That's pretty impressive as well. But I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. So I'm sure my brother thinks otherwise. We'll get into it next week. So that is pretty much all I have this week for the NFL. We're going to make this a short one because, as we like to do at Thanksgiving, we also like to do at Christmas. I celebrate several Christmases. So I celebrated with some friends last night. I'm celebrating with some family tonight, and I will celebrate with more family tomorrow. And when Alex gets back from his vacation, I will celebrate Christmas one more time with his family. So, it's a lot of fun. I've got a lot of stuff to do. I still got to wrap some presents. Wrapping presents, what a terrible job. And it's awful. Also, people can just rip it apart. Can't we just, hide everything and make it like an Easter egg hunt, only make it a Christmas present hunt? I think that would be so much easier. Anyway, I digress. So, that is about all for me. Episode 53 of the Positive Sports Podcast. Famous number 53s. Ouch. I think I've painted myself into a corner here. I can't think. Harry Carson, former linebacker of the New York Giants. Harry Carson, number 53, part of that great defense that the Giants had in 1986, I believe, that won the Super Bowl against the Bills alongside Lawrence Taylor. Harry Carson was the level-headed brains behind the operation, while Lawrence Taylor was the physical freak that wreaked havoc all over the place. Number 53, Harry Carson. Hats off to you, my friend. If you want to get a hold of the show and share your thoughts with me before next week's final week of the NFL season, you can email the show at positivesports10@gmail.com. Positivesports10@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of my brother, you can do so at Brooklyn Gaucho 8 on Twitter. He will be more than glad to banter back and forth with you about all things sports. And I'm not going to lie, I'm the same way. Love talking sports. So if you want to hit me up, you can do so on Twitter as well at eMontana21. And with that, we've come to the end of another wonderful episode of the Positive Sports Podcast. Next week, we will be doing our final show of the year. I don't know exactly what we're going to do. I'm sure we're going to talk about sports, but maybe we'll talk about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly of 2018. Who knows how we're going to do that show. But until then, folks, enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your time off, enjoy your family and friends. Take it easy on the eggnog, because that stuff will knock you out, knock you on your ass quick. So enjoy your family and friends, and as always, ignore the negativity, be the positivity. Peace.